Am I the a-hole for prioritizing my daughter's school performance over her emotional well-being after her mother's death? I, 39 male, am feeling conflicted about a recent decision I made regarding my teenage daughter, 16 female, following the death of her mother. I can't help but wonder if I made a huge mistake. So I'm turning to you, Reddit, to pass the judgment on whether or not I'm the a-hole in this situation. Since my wife's passing, life has been tough for the both of us. Dealing with my own grief while trying to provide for her has been a challenge. My daughter has been extremely distraught, and I can see how much she's struggling emotionally. However, when she asked me for time off from school to process her grief, I ended up prioritizing her academic performance instead. I'll admit, I've always been a stickler for education, and my daughter is a bright student who excels in her studies, particularly math and science, which are very important, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize that. When she approached me, I couldn't help but think about how it would impact her grades and future prospects. I was concerned that missing school would lead to a drop in her academic performance and potentially hinder her chances of getting into a good college. Instead of allowing her to take some time off, I suggested that she continue attending school and told her that I believed that maintaining a routine and focusing on her education would provide stability and keep her on track. Apparently, my daughter was devastated by my decision. She accused me of not caring about her feelings and prioritizing her school performance over her emotional well-being. She believes that I'm being callous and unfeeling, dismissing her need for time to heal. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for putting my daughter's school performance ahead of her emotional well-being, as she put it, after the death of her mother? I'm genuinely questioning if I have made the right decision and would appreciate your honest opinions. Thanks for reading. Top comments. You're the a-hole. She needed time to grieve. A couple weeks out of school won't ruin her academic results. I know this is hard and I'm sorry for your loss, but you need to stop being lazy. Get her teachers involved and make sure she can take the rest she deserves while staying on track with school. I'm sorry for your loss. You're the a-hole. She'll get into college even with taking a few weeks off. Focus on her long-term well-being and not the short-term academics. Yes, get her teachers and the school staff involved. Your daughter would also likely benefit from counseling or a support group. She's asking for help. Give it to her. You're the a-hole. I was a straight A student, and my father died suddenly, less than a month before I graduated high school. I only took a week off at that time, and I am so thankful for the teachers that just let me take a letter off my final grade rather than turn in a final project/paper. However, with the fallout and everything that happened after, I really wished I'd taken the next year off to focus on my mental health. But I was convinced that smart kids didn't do that, and my mom was in no place to think about it for me. I failed out of my first year of a prestigious college, and then had to take the time to deal with the crisis of no longer being the good student, my whole identity, on top of my dad's death. Mental health is more important. You're the a-hole. Massive a-hole move. You absolutely should have given your daughter time off from school to process her grief. I know your wife died, but your daughter is a child, and her mother died. All the more reason to know that a break won't ruin her future. Have a heart, man. Opie's daughter reached out to them, expressing her need for time off, and Opie dismissed her. I understand that education is important, but losing a parent is a devastating loss, and the daughter needs time and space to process her grief. By prioritizing her academic performance over her emotional well-being, Opie is sending the message that her feelings aren't important. At this moment, her mental and emotional state should take precedence. In this situation, the OP should take time to reflect on their decision and apologize to their daughter by showing her that they care about her feelings and that they're there for her. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my father by offering to stop telling my children that I love them? I call my kids boy, 15, and girl, 16. I love The Simpsons, and I always thought it was funny that Homer referred to Bart as boy, and Bart called him Homer. With my father, everything was yes sir, no sir. I also constantly tell my kids that I love them and am proud of them. For some reason, the name puts a wild hair at my dad's butt. He was over last weekend, and he was vociferous about how I'm hurting his grandchildren by not calling them by their names. I told him that my kids were happy and to leave it alone. He just wouldn't drop it, so I called my kids over to where we were talking, and I asked them if they wanted to be called by their names instead of boy and girl. I said, in return, they would have to call me sir, not daddy or dad. I said I would accept father in emotional conversations, but that I would no longer remind them every day that I loved them and was proud of them. They both did. They were happy with the status quo. They know what my relationship with my father is like. My father got all pissed off and said that's not what he wanted at all. So I asked him how often he told my sisters and I he loved us, or was proud of our accomplishments, or just as people. He said it was a different time, that his father is worse than him. So I asked him if he thought my kids were happier than myself and my sisters growing up. I pointed out that my kids are happy. They're reasonably well adjusted. Now he's being pissy, and my mom says he is upset that I think he was a bad father. He wasn't. He was just emotionally distant. I hated it. My sisters both had some therapy to help them choose better men. They both fell in love with any guy who gave them attention. My daughter knows her worth and won't settle for anything but the best. My son has no problem hugging me and telling me or his mom about his life. They are teens. I know I don't know everything going on with them, but I'm doing my best to be there and give them the support I never had. My kids know they are loved. I don't just say it, I try my best to show it. My dad thinks I'm being an a-hole for pointing out where he didn't do great as a father when he tried to criticize my parenting. Top comments. You're totally not the a-hole for that interaction with your father. Where you might be in dicey territory is the parenting choice of using your children as props and threatening, even in jest, to withhold affection. It sounds like you have a healthy parental bond, and your kids are old enough and know you weren't serious. But if they had any ambiguity about that, then you'd be an a-hole for causing it, just to illustrate a point to your father. I would say everyone sucks here, because of how he framed the question to his children. He didn't say, hey, are you okay with me calling you boy/girl, or do you prefer your actual name? He said, I'll call you by your name, but in return I won't love you as much. Which is really weird. Maybe the kids do want to be called their actual names, but OP keeps pulling stuff like this. Even if he knows 100% they prefer being called boy/girl, OP is giving his kids an ultimatum where one side is, I won't tell you I love you. It's pretty messed up. But he said they understand his relationship with his father. They're teenagers, not little kids. They understand sarcasm and jokes. It's not at all about whether they actually prefer being called that. They knew he wasn't asking the question for real. Do you really think he was asking them that in earnest? It wasn't a real question. It was a sarcastic question, made in jest to prove a point to his father. The kids understood that. At that age, I would have understood the sarcasm, but it would have still hurt. And then I would have felt like an idiot for feeling hurt because it's just sarcasm. I shouldn't be taking it so seriously. And then I would have spiraled into self-hate for being such a literal idiot who can't take a joke, while still feeling hurt over the comment. I just think not loving your kids isn't something you should joke about. To be fair, I do have a laundry list of diagnoses: anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, but I didn't get diagnosed until I was an adult. If you've never taken kids to be evaluated, you don't know they don't have one of those, especially anxiety and depression, which are on the rise in young people. Anxiety and depression are silver-tongued liars, and a comment like, if I start calling you by your name, I'll stop loving you, even if sarcastic, would give them the perfect fodder to torment me at night, because they wouldn't let go of the what if. What if it wasn't sarcasm? What if he meant it? And what if one or both of your kids did want to be called by their names and not boy or girl? I can guarantee you they now feel like they can't bring that up. My family is a deeply sarcastic one, and I used to not see a problem with it, but now I have trouble talking about my emotions because of various comments made over the years. Yeah, I'm definitely projecting, but I mostly wish my dad had checked in even once after a comment like that. And he does tell me he loves me lots. Just sometimes those comments hurt. So it might be worth it for OP to check in, just in case. You never know what's happening in someone's head. Better to make sure and find out it really is nothing. than to have something much worse brewing under the surface. The OP's dad needs to respect the OP's parenting choices. Calling your kids boy and girl might be a bit unconventional, but it's a harmless and lighthearted way for the OP to express love to their children. If OP's kids are fine with it and feel loved, that's what matters. However, I don't think it was necessary for the OP to involve their children in their argument with their father. Still, it's clear that OP is making an effort to be emotionally present for their children, unlike their father's distant approach. If OP's dad gets defensive when they point out his own shortcomings as a father, then he needs to take a good hard look at himself. The OP is doing their best to break the cycle and give their kids the support they never had. Am I the a-hole for kidnapping my baby, causing my husband to have a panic attack? I, 29 female, recently started working again after having my daughter, 4 months. Daycare is too expensive, so my husband, 35 male, reluctantly agreed to stay home. It's important to know that he's been unemployed since 2021. He receives benefits. It's also important to know that he's extremely lazy. He doesn't cook, clean, or help out in any way. I was nervous about leaving her alone with her father, but I had no choice. When I came back from work, she was clean and sleeping. The next few times I came home, he was either playing with her, feeding her, or out for a walk with her. I was happy. A few days ago, my neighbor told me that as soon as I leave, the baby cries, and she cries for hours. My neighbor said that she knocked on our door and he finally answered it. He was sleeping. I concluded that he sleeps all day and night. Before I come home, he pretends to care for her. I decided to take the day off work. I left home at my regular time, waited 30 minutes, and then went home. Sure enough, he was knocked out asleep with his stupid noise-canceling headphones on. I went to my daughter's room, scooped her up, and took her to my friend's house. I waited about 2 hours, and I finally called him to tell him that I was coming home early. He called me back saying that he can't find the baby. He told me that he was going to call the police. But before I did, I told him what I did. He called me an a-hole and a lot of other words too. When I got home, his mother was there, calming his nerves because he has a panic attack. She also called me an a-hole. My husband decided to sleep at her house. Family members are telling me that I'm a terrible person. I know that it was extreme, but I don't know if I would consider myself to be an a-hole. English isn't my native language. Sorry about the grammar. Top comments. Sleeping with noise-canceling headphones as the only adult in the home caring for a 4-month-old? Absolutely not the a-hole. Yeah, I hate those stupid things. He wears them all the time, spent money we don't have on them. You are lucky your neighbor told you and didn't call CPS, because this is neglect, and dangerous. I'd divorce my husband over this, period. I'm not a fan of Reddit's frequent suggestions to divorce the dude, but in this case, I totally agree with it. He put your child in incredible danger. Well, generally, I think there are many valid reasons to get a divorce. If your significant other calls you names when undeserved, like trash or useless, it's divorce time. Neglect of a child is definitely another reason. I used to feel the same, but then I realized that the majority of people posting about their relationship are doing so because their partner is pretty much garbage. Most of the time, they really do need to leave. Am I the a-hole isn't the place you'll generally find stories about good relationships, so it kinda makes sense. Especially in this case, I'd tell dang husband to stay at his mom's permanently. File for sole custody, because he's a useless nitwit who can't look after their little one. He's a loser. So many people need permission and validation to leave the bad situation. OP's husband needs a serious wake-up call. It's clear that the husband is taking advantage of the situation and not pulling his weight as a parent or a partner. Sleeping all day while pretending to care for their daughter is not just lazy, it's neglectful. The fact that your neighbor had to intervene and that the husband didn't even realize their daughter was missing until they called him is absolutely ridiculous. Taking the day off to expose his negligence was a drastic move, but OP's actions were driven by genuine concern for their daughter's well-being. Calling you names and having a panic attack doesn't excuse his behavior or make you the a-hole. OP did what they had to do to protect their daughter. Now it's time for Opie to have a serious conversation with her husband about his role as a parent and the changes that need to be made for the sake of their daughter's well-being. Am I the a-hole for forcing my daughter to gut a fish? I, 38, have 2 daughters, 13 and 10. They are wonderful, and when I was growing up, I had to learn a lot of life skills. My wife and I have been teaching them life skills such as cooking, cleaning, and car maintenance. My oldest is older, so she gets much more hands-on experience. This summer we went camping, and she had to make the fire and tent, get the feel for it. We went fishing, but didn't catch anything. I went to port, and I bought a few whole fish, not gutted. We live on the ocean. This is a life skill. It's common to buy whole fish. If she wants to eat fish, she needs to know how to gut them. I took it home and was going to teach her how to process a whole fish. I think this is important to do in understanding. It's a fish and she was grossed out, but I made her do it, and then we cooked it. She went to my wife telling her I forced her to gut a fish. This resulting in an argument about forcing the kids to do stuff. But it's a life skill, and we forced them to learn how to cook and do laundry, so I don't see the difference. She's mad at me, and so is my oldest. Top comments. You're the a-hole. I can cook, I can clean, I can do laundry, I can do many things. But not once, in my more than 60 years on this earth, have I needed to gut a fish. Unless you regularly catch your own fish, it is not an essential life skill. By all means, if she wants to know how to gut a fish, teach her. But forcing her makes you the a-hole. Edit. I'm getting a ridiculous number of replies saying, but it's so useful, as though that's a synonym for essential, and I'm tired of writing the same response to every one of them. Useful isn't the point. I know how to jump out of a freaking plane with a parachute on my back and land safely. That's a useful skill too. If you keep telling me how essential gutting fish is, I'm going to drag you to a plane and insist on teaching you the essential life skill of parachuting. Perfectly said. Maybe you should force her to dress a deer and wear the hide as clothing next. Hey, it's a life skill. Don't forget about tanning your own leather jacket and raccoon hat. It's a life skill to know not to push your child into something uncomfortable that isn't necessary. You're the a-hole. This comment nails it. This will sour her on fishing. If dad doesn't see the error in his ways, it'll also sour her on him. It's great that the OP is teaching their daughters important life skills, but forcing them to do something they find gross and uncomfortable isn't the best approach. While learning to cook, clean, and do laundry are valuable skills, gutting a fish isn't essential and might be a step too far if it genuinely upsets their daughters. It's important for the OP to respect their children's boundaries and find a balance between teaching them life skills and considering their individual preferences. In my opinion, OP is in the wrong here. Instead of forcing their daughter, OP should have had a conversation with their daughter about her discomfort and found an alternative way to teach her about fish preparation. OP needs to apologize to their daughter and find a compromise that respects everyone's feelings. Am I the a-hole for leaving my husband at home while I spend the week at my brother's because of how he buys groceries? I've been in a committed relationship with my husband for 17 years, and overall, things have been great. We've had a few rough patches, but what's important to note is that while he earns more than me and is considered the main provider, I have a substantial trust fund that ensures we're financially stable. I work part-time as a teacher while attending university, earning less than him, and most of my income goes towards tuition. Our household income exceeds $200K annually, while the average in our area is below $50K. One ongoing issue we have is my husband's frugality. He likes to control my spending and have the final say on how he uses his earnings. It's worth mentioning that I've never used any of his income and have no intention to do so. However, the main point of contention between us is his frequent visits to food banks. Despite having more than enough food at home, he insists on going to food banks to save money. He intentionally looks disheveled and uses our beat-up car to blend in, even though he's never experienced food scarcity. I've explained to him the need for food donations in our community, even showing him social media posts from local food banks, but he remains indifferent. I suggested he volunteer or donate to gain first-hand experience, but he refuses. The unfortunate part is that since we're never short on food, most of what he brings home ends up getting thrown away. Today, I discovered our fridge filled with fresh produce and meat that clearly didn't come from our regular grocery store. When I confronted him, he admitted to going to a food bank after seeing a Facebook post about a donation of fresh food. People on social media were already asking if any was left, and there wasn't. I showed him these comments, but he brushed them off, claiming people should have gone earlier. Exhausted by this situation, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother for the weekend, asking for space to think things over. My husband accuses me of overreacting, being vindictive, and threatens to go back to the food banks regardless of my feelings. His family is also messaging me, calling me an a-hole, and urging me to stop interfering with his choices. I turned off my phone, but now they're bombarding my brother with messages. Thankfully, he supports my decision and ignores them. All I want is to enjoy the rest of my week without being angry at my husband. Yes, I could let this go and not scold him, but the food he takes could have gone to people who truly need it. I'm not leaving my husband, but I need a few days away to gain some clarity. Am I wrong for wanting space? Top comments. Not the a-hole. This is completely unhinged. A man making $200K while married to a woman with a trust fund going to a food bank is unacceptable. I couldn't live like that. I also couldn't live with someone controlling how the money was spent. You are absolutely not wrong to want space. I would want permanent space. I imagine there's some kind of food insecurity or trauma around food in the husband's past that makes him essentially steal food that he doesn't even need. I know it's not legally stealing, but ethically it is. I'm wondering what his early childhood was like, whether either of his parents were addicts, whether food was readily available, etc., etc. I would make counseling a condition of any return home. He can afford it, and it might help save the marriage, not the a-hole. Some rich people would do this not out of poverty or trauma mindset, but out of a wealth hoarding mindset. They don't tip at restaurants and they always want a bargain. They see their frugality as the virtue that brings them wealth, and often perceive poor people as wasteful and therefore deserving of their poverty. If his family is like this too, they probably think that taking from a food pantry is resourceful in an Ayn Randian way, where self-interest is the only rational way to live. Oh yes, that could be true. Especially his comment about how the real poor people didn't get the food fast enough. I didn't realize this when I made my original comment, but I think OP said her husband grew up wealthy. I imagine there is some kind of food insecurity or trauma around food in the husband's past that makes him essentially steal food he doesn't even need. Or maybe he's just plain greedy and selfish. That's not uncommon, and often has absolutely nothing to do with trauma. No, the OP is not wrong for wanting some space to gather their thoughts and gain clarity. Their husband's actions are beyond questionable and morally bankrupt. The husband's behavior, despite having more than enough food at home, is unnecessary and disrespectful to those who genuinely rely on food banks. It's important to prioritize those in need, not take resources that others could benefit from. His indifference and refusal to understand the impact of his actions demonstrate a lack of empathy. Taking a step back and seeking clarity is a reasonable response. It's concerning that the husband's family is not understanding OP's perspective and instead bombarding them with messages. This issue goes beyond just the food banks. It's about respect, empathy, and responsible use of resources. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you agree with the verdicts down below. Also, consider checking out my other channel, *_Vingart, where I post my artwork, and my Etsy, StarVingartCompany, where I sell my art prints and stickers. Bye.